Welcome back to Unmasked, the podcast that uncovers the thoughts, feelings, and voices of the BU community. I'm Lazowski.
And I'm Veronica Thompson. Every week, we go out and ask our peers a random, intriguing question and allow them to share their thoughts anonymously.
Our goal is to illuminate the wide variety of personalities and experiences within the student body. Thank you for joining us today.
Now let's turn it over to our field reporting segment and see what people had to say for this week's question.
I'm Lazowski.
And I'm Veronica Thompson.
And today we're at GSU asking students another question.
We're going to ask them, what are do's and don'ts of parenting? Do's and don'ts of parenting.
I would say definitely do listen to your children, like if they have any emotional feelings, like physical distress. Also support their dreams. Don't push them towards something they don't want to do. That's what my parents did. And my parents also just like be equal for both your children. Like my parents prioritized my brother, who was their son, over me, the female. And they basically wanted my brother like the best of everything. And for me, they pretty much disregarded me on the side. So I would say definitely like treat both of your children, all your children equally. Just raise them how you would want to be raised, and just support their dreams regardless of how absurd it is and stuff.
Parents should not compare their children to other children, because as much as like they think that it will motivate their child, it literally does the exact opposite. It sucks, and I feel like it's just such a bad thing to do because it makes them more insecure. And yeah, that a child should never ever feel like they're less than, another child. It's your baby, so.
Always support what your child wants to do, and don't be too aggressive with punishing, and treat them with respect.
I'm not going to give my kids social media until they're 13, because I was given social media when I was like 7 and 8, and it really like threw me for a loop. And I was just exposed to too much stuff. I think like a cell phone, especially because like I plan to raise my kids in a city, like I think giving them a cell phone with like restricted access is a good idea. Like that's definitely a do if you're going to be like a wise parent in a big city, but no social media. I don't need Mark Zuckerberg like influencing my kids' minds.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would do, I guess. I would say make sure that your kid is self-sufficient. I think like my parents definitely made sure that they never cleaned my room for me. They never did my dishes for me. Like they made sure that I knew how to take care of myself, and that helped me a lot.
I think that when a lot of people decide that they want to have a child, they don't take into account raising a person from the age of like 0 to until they're no longer here. And when they move past like being a baby and being a little kid and start formulating opinions of their own, a lot of parents can be really close-minded that they're just like going against what they believe. So I would definitely work to not do that if I have children of my own.
Do's and don'ts of parenting.
Let kids be kids. That's a good one right there.
Is that it?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing.
Don't track your kid at college. Don't hit them.
That's all that needs to be said. Anybody else have something?
Don't invade your kids' privacy. There needs to be a boundary so that they can thrive and feel like they have personal space.
What I would do is I would give my child support instead of like restrictive support. And then I think don'ts of parenting are like spanking. Like I would never hit my kid.
Can you elaborate on restrictive support?
Like support as in like making your child do something that they don't want to do. I would always be like supportive of them doing the things that they enjoy doing.
Like kids these days, like they may have some access to the internet. So in these days, kids can basically see everything on the internet, and that kind of like a problem. Like sometimes they're exposed to some information that is quite make it difficult for kids to bear, and sometimes it make them some kind of more mature than the kids when they used to be. So usually like back in the day, like kids when they are like 14 and 15, they usually have their argument with their parents. But right now, like kids around 9 or maybe 10, they can arguing with the parents. Sometimes cannot even win the argument, and that's kind of an issue. Like, especially some mental health issues, it's much kind of challenging for parents these days.
What are your do's and don'ts of parenting?
One thing I definitely wouldn't do is like stick an iPad in front of my little kid. They'll just go to some like weird Spider-Man, Elsa, whatever, and it's just like, no, I think I would just find like a toy that they could be distracted with. I can't trust my kids with like an iPad. So yeah.
I think one do is having them be exposed to a lot of different things in life. For example, like giving them like exposure to a lot of different instruments, but not forcing them down one path in particular. So like opening up all paths available to them and letting them choose. It's a good way of parenting.
What are some do's and don'ts of parenting?
Don't overemphasize success.
I don't of parenting. You should say it. Don't live vicariously through your child.
Period. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You got something?
Allow your child to be creative and interact with color, and don't be a sad beige parent.
Do teach your kid how to do a backflip. That's it.
Trampoline or no trampoline?
Both.
No bad. Do's and don'ts of parenting.
Having a kid when one of the two parents is not completely like prone to the idea of having a kid.
Can you say more?
Yeah, so like if one of the parents is like, maybe, like you shouldn't, because like a kid is like a very long-term commitment, and it's also a financial commitment. So if you're going that route, like it should be a definite yes from both parents.
So I think, I don't know if this is necessarily like with a child, but I would kind of resolve any type of like trauma or issue that's kind of going on, so we're not like implementing that on children, because I feel like there's a lot of projection from parents to their child. So I guess that's a do, is let's do some therapy, let's do some inner work.
Yeah, thank you. Mine was actually really similar to that. I was gonna say, like, especially with like body image stuff, I feel like with mothers to daughters is a big thing, and that's like definitely sort out your own issues before you have a child is the biggest thing.
Thank you.
I'd say what I think is really important is to not make your child feel like your love is conditional and that it like relies on grades or accomplishments or whatever, because I feel like parents just like want what's best, and they kind of unintentionally instill that fear-based thing. And I've seen like a greater wave of like what's called gentle parenting, which like I'd say is a good thing. Like I think it's kind of obvious at this point. It's like, yeah, don't hit your kid, like use your words. But it's also like sometimes like yelling is unnecessary, and I just like see this divide of treating children like they're not like autonomous beings. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Honestly, that was like an essay though, because everything was related and all came together. Period. Do's and don'ts of parenting.
Do not think of your child as an investment. Your child does not owe you anything. Do, however, support them in whatever it is that they are interested in, however they want to express themselves, because that creates not machines or a product of society, but rather a creative individual.
What are your do's and don'ts of parenting?
My one issue with parenting is people have kids, and that's the problem with our society.
Thank you.
Anybody else got something?
I'm an avid
You can take some time to think.
Whatever I say will avid child hater.
What are your do's and don'ts in parenting?
Do give objects random names that you say around your kid, so their friends will make fun of them when they're older. Don't tell them that the names for the things are wrong.
So we're debriefing after the episode, and we're going to answer the question for ourselves. For me, I would say I know a lot of good things that parents are capable of, and one of them would be to expose children to as many cultures and different diverse experiences as you possibly can, whether it's through music, food, movie, learning about other people's religions and faith systems and cultural practices, and engaging with those cultures, especially if those are not the cultures that you come from or that your child identifies as, because they're going to be a person living in the world amongst other people, and it's really important for them to understand other people's experiences, and that just like helps them grow. Another thing that would be really good is to give your child the opportunity to grow by learning other languages and instruments, like musical instruments, engaging with art, because people who know a lot of languages and who know musical instruments or who have like creative abilities that they've gained early on have that foundation from an early age, and that strengthens the mind.
I'm very similar on a lot of points. I think exposing your kids to multiple cultures by traveling to different countries, by exposing them to different languages, if you can, right, is a crucial thing to our society growing in acceptance of people from other places with different cultures and different backgrounds, which actually create different ideas and different ways of thinking, which are things that we have to understand over time. One thing that I'm kind of conflicted on is whether or not to continue pushing a kid to do something. Like, for example, my parents gave me the opportunity to take piano lessons when I was younger, and when I was young, I disliked it a lot. I was like, oh, I don't want to practice. Oh, I don't want to have to see my instructor. Oh, I don't want to work these hours on piano scales, etc., etc. But now that I look at myself and the fact that I gave up and my parents gave up alongside with me, I regret till this day, because having that ability to play piano today, having that ability to understand music in a better light for me today is something that I'm missing, and I would love to go back and push myself, I think, a bit more to learn about it. So I'm kind of conflicted on that. How should our parents push us? Should they push us further, or should they just allow us to be the main motivators behind something? Because that's what pushes you in the future, if you are the main motivator behind your ideas and your activities. So yeah, that's an open-ended question that maybe we'll answer sometime in the future.
Yeah, that one's very, I guess, controversial, because a lot of people who had that experience of being forced to do certain things have now lost that passion that they had in that thing, and they might have had a better relationship with it if it weren't tied to, you know, not being told to do something you don't want to do as a child. Another thing that just came up for me is building a safe space for your children to be honest with you, because it's very important that they have their parents or their guardians to go to in times of need. And a lot of parents teach their children not to trust them, because their children learn that if they tell them anything bad that happens, including like getting a bad grade on a test, that their parents are going to yell at them and make them feel bad, instead of responding to them with, how can I help and support my child in this moment? And that might be something that parents view as looking out for their child and doing what's best, but it genuinely just teaches the child that they can't trust the parent.
I just want to mention one more thing. There was one student who mentioned a really good point about the commitment parents have to take on when having a child. They have to take care of them throughout their younger years, and even more importantly, take care of them throughout their older years, when they become a teenager, when they grow out of being a teenager into a young adult. I think those points are some of the most important defining points when it comes to parenting, because your kid could have differing opinions from you, could argue with you, could have changed their mind due to personal experiences. And as a parent, you can't really get angry at the kid anymore. I mean, they're not a kid. They're a growing adult. They're developing their own opinions. And by continuing to teach them as if they're children when they're young adults isn't always the best strategy, and restricting them in that way. So there's a lot of development that comes as one ages into teenage years and young adult years, and I think parents have to realize that and know what they signed up for when they're having a kid at the end of the day.
I agree. The bottom line is your child is a completely different person from you, and they deserve respect, however that looks. Period. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Unmasked, presented by Boston University's independent student newspaper, The Daily Free Press. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. To hear previous episodes of Unmasked, visit dfpress.co/listen for our podcast archive.
Until we meet again,
goodbye.
Are you recording?
Do I have to hold the phone?
No. If you want to, you can.
Just because my hand has been in a bag of chips for like...
No, you don't have to hold the phone. We typically don't.
It's still pretty fun. Well, how many do we have?
We gotta come back to those people. We gotta go back to those. Did they leave?
How many do we have so far?
They're about to leave.
¿A dónde ibas, coño?
Yo, he's watching. You ready?
Finally. Okay.
Out of nowhere. It's just always like a good party.
Why not a front flip?
Oh.
Front flips are scary.
Back flips are scary. You're exposing your back.
The hardest part of a backflip is how scary. Or like a backflip is like physically easier to do than a front flip is. Like just by
Can you do one?
Yeah. I'm not gonna do one here. No.
Oh, I'm still recording, and I
what about these guys?
Circle back. Are we circling back already?
Oh.
Hey, you want to be in our podcast?